This video is concerning target student Nick Brown. He attends Nashville Elementary School. He is in the 6th grade. He's 11 years and 10 months. He was born on November 12, 2006. He was last evaluated on 3/1/18, and his parent is Amber Brown. He is an 11-year-old Caucasian male that receives special education services for 1,475 minutes per week in the self-contained classroom based on a classification of multiple disabilities associated with autism and fetal alcohol syndrome. He also receives speech language therapy twice a week for 30 minutes for each session, but was recently dismissed from occupational and physical therapies. Nick does participate with 6th grade students in science and all activity classes. He has received special education assistance in the self-contained classroom since preschool. He was initially evaluated when he was preparing for transition from Howard County Children's Center preschool to kindergarten. He was adopted at age 2 by David and Amber Brown, who were advised that his biological mother abused drugs during her pregnancy with him, and he was delivered prematurely. Additionally, malnutrition was discovered on 3 occasions before he was 6 months of age, which prompted transfer from his parents to his grandparents. Others in Nick's household include his 13-year-old sister and Brown's children, who are 4, 7, and 17. Mr. Brown is employed as a laborer and Mrs. Brown is a homemaker. Nick was slow to attain developmental milestones. He is healthy at present. His mother describes him as a good child, but he is very spoiled. He likes school where he gets along with friends well, but he does tend to cry easily and move slowly with poor coordination and balance. The last evaluation that Nick had done included the Reynolds Intellectual Assessment Scale, 2nd edition, the Bender-Gestalt Test of Visual Motor Integration, the Woodcock-Johnson Test of Achievement, 3rd edition, Standard Score Comparison Regression Analysis. The school-administered tests were Vision and Hearing, Speech-Language Evaluation, Brandt's Inventory of Early Development, the 2nd edition, and Adaptive Behavior Assessment System, 2nd edition. His test results indicated that he passed his vision and hearing on 2/28/2018. The speech language report was separate, and it indicated that articulation is significantly delayed, and articulation is the ability that Nick has to speak clearly. His voice appears to be within normal limits. Fluency appears to be within normal limits, and fluency refers to the smoothness of the flow. Orofacial structure appears to have no impairment, and language skills are significantly delayed. He was given the Golden Fristoe Test of Articulation, 3rd edition, by the speech pathologist. He was also given the Arizona Articulation Proficiency Scale, 3rd edition. On the Goldman, he scored, norms are provided for ages 2 through 21. The number of errors on the sounds in the word subtest can be converted to standard scores with a mean of 100 and a standard deviation of 15, which means anything from 85 to 115 is normal. He achieved a raw score of 42, which indicated that his articulation was significantly delayed for his age. On the Arizona, he scored a total score of 76, which converts to a standard score of the lower, less than 55, and a percentile rank of less than 1. These scores are significantly delayed. He was also given the test of language development, intermediate 4th edition, the TOLD. It's an expressive receptive language evaluation tool for ages 8 to 17. It measures various features, syntax and semantics, and systems, listening and speaking of language. Results reveal a profile of children's specific abilities and disabilities in these areas. Scores on this test indicated a 2 standard deviation from the norm. According to the language testing completed on this date, Nick's receptive and expressive language skills appear to be significantly delayed for his age. And that means that the way that Nick is able to express himself or receive information is not the same as his other peers that are his age. Nick is alert. He can take part in instruction and activities. He is a student in the self-contained but does attend some regular education classes with his peers. He is verbal and can carry on conversations with others. His cognitive limitations affect his receptive and expressive language skills. He has a limited vocabulary, but is able to communicate his wants and needs. He can initiate conversation and answer basic WH questions. He is very functional in his language skills as compared to his intellectual disabilities. The recommendations from the speech pathologist was that Nick was to continue to receive 30 minutes of speech 2 times a week to address articulation. The language goals can be worked on in the self-contained classroom. Nick was also administered the RIAS to measure his intellectual functioning, and this is normed for individuals between the ages of 3 and 94. On this test, Nick scored, when you're looking at the T-scores, they have a mean of 50 and a standard deviation of 10. Therefore, scores below 40 or above 60 are significantly discrepant. On the guess what, on the verbal part, Nick scored a 27, which is well below 40. Verbal reasoning, a 28, which is well below 40. Verbal memory, which is 29, which is well below 40. On the nonverbal subtest, on odd item out, he scored a 36, which is well below 40. What's missing? He scored a 34, which is well below 40. And on nonverbal memory, he scored a 43, which showed to be a little above average. His IQ summary, his scores were all pretty much in the low to borderline range. He had a 66 verbal IQ, a 78 nonverbal IQ, a full scale of 67, and a memory of 77. The 12-point difference between Nick's verbal and nonverbal scores reflects a discrepancy of less than 1 standard deviation, which suggests that his full scale IQ is a reasonable estimate of his overall intellectual abilities. While his short-term memory for nonverbal and spatial material is low average, his memory for verbal and linguistic material is much lower. On the Woodcock-Johnson Achievement Test, that test for basic skills like of reading, math, writing, Nick scored well below his grade level and age level on that test. On the letter word identification, he had a standard score of 71, which again is below 85, so that is in the 3rd percentile and it's low average. Passage comprehension, 66. Total reading was 66. Calculation, 25. Applied problems, 50. Total math, 33, which is very, very low for math. Spelling, 56. Writing samples, 28. Total writing was a 40. And he had a total achievement of 51, which was a grade equivalent of a kindergarten of the 6th month. He recognized all letters presented. He could select a given word from an array of 4 words with different beginning sounds, and he could read a few elementary words independently. He added pictures, objects, but he did not understand the concept of subtraction, as might be indicated on his ability to compute how many are left when some items were theoretically removed. Since assessed intellectual skills, full scale is a 67, are deficient, and the WJ3s are similarly restricted, application of regression effects to determine relative learning weaknesses is meaningless. Nick appears to achieve in all subjects within the range expected according to his intellectual ability. On the Bergantz, total language development was 63, total academic cognitive 61, daily living a 73, social emotional 37. His fine motor skills are, he can write fairly well. He prints his first and last name. He writes numerals in sequence to 10 and prints uppercase letters in sequence. He named 27 out of 27 objects that and pointing to most presented. He can receptively follow 3-step directions. Academic cognitive, mathematics and literacy, he gives 3, rote counts to 20, recognizes $1 if no coins. He matches quantity with numerals to 3, points to first, last, and second, names all colors. He knows 5 out of 16 survival sight words and reads 8 out of 24 basic pre-primer words. Daily living, he's able to eat, dress and undress, toilet and bathe, and work-related skills, they are all accomplished. Social emotional play skills and behaviors are mastered as it are engagement and initiative activities. On the adaptive behavior, Nick scored When you look at that, it has a mean of 10 and a standard deviation of 3. So anything below 7 is below average. On the teacher and parent score, he scored below average in all except for school and home living. His parents scored him average on health and safety. School and parent both scored him above average on leisure, self-care. Self-direction was high for the teacher score. It was a 10, 6 for a parent. Social was 9 for teacher. So the general adaptive was 85, which was below average. Conceptual domain was 87, which was below average. Social domain was 92, which was average. And practical domain was 84, which was below average. Overall functioning at school is low average, although it was lower at home. The Bender testing pointed to borderline fine motor skills, but legible formation of letters. And Nick, although much of his speech is still unintelligible, he would benefit from remaining in speech language therapy, and he also requires much one-on-one individualized instruction to be successful. His strengths are self-care, leisure, letter identification, phonological awareness, and his personal weaknesses are basic reading, basic math, and math applications. Thank you.